Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on what part of the world you're in. I am RC Blakes, and I want to share something with you today. If this is your first time here, I'm a pastor, and I'm a man, and I'm a student of life. And so I love to observe the comings and goings of people and how people interact and how people survive this thing called life. There's something that I taught recently in the New Home Family Worship Center Church, where I pastor in the United States of America, in the southern part between Louisiana and Texas. And it's a biblical perspective on understanding, or at least getting a grasp on the tension between men and women. Why is it that, the question is always asked, why is it that, hello everyone, thank you for coming in. I like to get started because people have short attention spans. That's why I don't spend a lot of time greeting you all. But the question is always asked, why is it that men and women love one another so much? To most women, men are irresistible, and to most men, women are irresistible. And yet, when you push either into a corner, the biggest challenge for a woman is the man she loves. And quite often, sometimes, the biggest challenge for a man is the woman that she loves. And why is this? What happened? Why is this? If you look in the book of Genesis, and this is a biblical perspective, so if you hear me reading the Bible, remember I am a preacher, and this is a biblical perspective. But if you look in Genesis chapter 2, verses 21 and 22, and those of you that are in here that may function as scribes, you can write the scriptures as we go. Some people actually like to take notes, and I love it when people do. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 21 and 22, it says, "And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman and brought her unto the man." So God made everything Adam needed, and he put him in this garden. He gave him all of this power and all of this authority and all of these blessings. But then, when you read the full context, you see where God says it's not good for him to be alone. So God reaches into Adam and he pulls out a rib and he creates the woman, creates Eve, which means mother of all living. So the first woman, biblically, the first woman, her name was Eve, mother of all living. Nothing, and I think that's a major principle for life and relationships. Nothing lives without woman. Man is like seed, he possesses seed. He's like a bag of seed. But if I have a bag of seed in the middle of the concrete jungle where there is no soil, the seed will do me no good. Seed must have what? Soil. Well, if man is the seed, the woman is the soil of life. And nothing lives without the woman. Eve was, in essence, the key to Adam's potential. Everybody, is in an uproar about why is it that I, as a man, love women so much. I love my wife. I love my daughters. I'm an advocate for women. And people wonder, why is that? But the reality is that any man that is consciously man, is a conscious man, automatically comes into a posture where he protects, defends, and he's an advocate for womanhood, because the woman brings into the man's life the fulfillment of all of the potential that God put in him. Adam had all of this potential in him, and God said it's not good for him to be alone. I have to make him one that is suitable. When it says helpmeet, it's not talking about a servant or a slave. The Bible's talking about one that is suitable, one that goes along with him to extract all of the potential out of him and to actually see it manifest. So we're looking at the dynamics, the divine dynamics between the woman and the man, and why God created both, and why God gave Eve to Adam. In Genesis 2:20, it says, "And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found," there it is, "an helpmeet, one that is suitable." The male cow had the female cow so they could bring forth and multiply. The male monkey had the female monkey so they could reproduce. But for Adam, there was not one suitable that could take that which was in him and help him to what? Reproduce himself. So God gave him a woman. This is why a man, a conscious man, views womanhood as a gift, because the woman is the gift to the man. She's God's gift to the man. Now, it's hard for you to see that as a man if you're not conscious. You know, if you're still struggling with a boy's psychology, little boys fight with girls. It's going to be hard for you to comprehend or to process what I just said, because when you're not fully man, you find yourself in competition with the woman. But now let me move forward. I don't want to ramble. The woman was created to help Adam to dominate. She was God's most precious gift to him. You know, like I was sitting and I was looking, and Lisa is just about 10 feet away from me now. And I was just looking and thinking about all of the things, and listen to this very carefully, thinking about all of the things that God has put in me. And, you know, most of it has not even come to surface yet. But it's amazing to me where God has brought me from and brought me to. Well, 99% of those things that God put in me were like ideas and visions. You know what I mean? I have a lot of visions and a lot of ideas, but the strange thing is that I don't possess, it's like my brain doesn't work to actually facilitate the ideas and the dreams and the visions I have. It's like I see them, but I don't know how to actually make it come to pass. And then it's like God gives me my wife, and it's like she sees, you know, when I speak, she sees everything I'm saying, and it's like she can pull it together and actually make it happen. Because the woman is what? The gift that God gave to the man. The woman was never created to be Adam's slave. Eve was never created. And I know we hear a lot of twisted theology, you know, around the man's role versus the woman's role. But when you look in the book of Genesis, in creation as it was originally, God never created the woman to be subservient or second class to the man. She was actually his equal. She was his equal in dominion. And in 1 Corinthians 11:8-9, it says, "For the man is not of the woman, but the woman of the man. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man." Meaning what? The man was the one that needed help. So God created the woman to what? Help the man. So it's interesting that God chose to create Eve. Now listen to this. Listen to this very carefully. It's interesting when you look at the biblical account of Adam and Eve's creation. It's interesting that God chose to create Eve from Adam's rib, because, you know, one of the points made is that the rib is from the side of the man, meaning what? The woman was created to stand right alongside, not really behind. We say behind every great man, there's a woman. Well, that's not talking about physically or positionally behind, but it means that she has his back. But in terms of God's order, she was created right alongside him, his equivalent in dominion. But it's interesting that God creates Eve from Adam's rib, because the rib houses and protects the vital organs. You know, it houses everything that is vital inside of you is housed within your rib cage. And as I just stated, the mark of manhood, the mark of full and complete manhood, is the recognition of the gift of womanhood, that God has given us the woman, you know, to cover us and to protect us. Let's not use the word cover because religious folk gonna jump on it. Oh, the man covers the woman. And I understand all of that. But in the same token, God gives the woman to us because we needed what the woman provides. Now, the woman was given to the man, again, to birth his potential. The question is, how did we come to the point where man is working against the woman and the woman against the man? And yet there's this passionate love one for the other that is many times misconstrued and misdirected. Why does the man, in most cases, not all, but if God gave the woman to us as men, if God recognized that we needed help and he gave the woman to help us to maximize and to actually manifest our potential and to be God's greatest gift to us as men, why is it that the man, in most cases throughout the world, breaks his own rib? God created her from Adam's rib. Why is it that the man is completely dedicated and committed to breaking his own rib? In other words, why are we as men working overtime to hurt and to break the woman that God has given to us? Now, I hear you and I feel you. You know, I get it all the time. Well, you know, Pastor, there are women that are no good too, and I agree with that. There are women that are no good. I promise you, I'm aware of that. You know, I know that it's not always one-sided, but I will add this to it: the women that are responding aggressively and negatively towards men today are most of the time the product of the abuse of men, either from fathers, from previous men, from sons. And so it's this constant trauma that creates, thank you, Anisha, it's this constant trauma that creates this broken psychology in the woman that makes her, for lack of a more sophisticated way of saying it, give the man some of his own medicine. But for us as men, you know, we were never traumatized. There was no generation of women that just abused us and broke us down to the point that we, you know, turned into this beast. So we created that, in other words, you know, because a woman can only reproduce when you think biologically, you think spiritually. If you're a Christian like I am and you believe the Bible, when you think spiritually, and if you look at Genesis, the account of the creation of man, as at least a model of how the male-female dynamic works, a woman can only reproduce what a man gives her. So if a woman is reproducing aggression, it means that a man had to seed that. I have, you know, beautiful children that are the product of my seed. My wife can only bring forth those children based on the seed that I provided. And so it is in life. You know, when we see stuff coming out of our women, we can't stop at what she or what they're doing. We have to ask ourselves the question, now, what did I do to seed into this? What did I do to create this? If not me personally, what did generations of other men do to create this dysfunction in the woman that God gave to man to be a blessing to him, that now she's working against him? So why does the man break his own rib? Okay, letter A. That's the question. Why does the man break his own rib? Why does the man work against the woman? Letter A. A man works to break his own rib or the women in his life when the brokenness and the insecurity of the man is not processed. When a man is broken and when a man is personally insecure as a man, he will make it his full-time job to break women. Broken men destroy strong women. When a man's brokenness and his personal insecurity has not been processed, he will spend his time breaking the women in his life, from his girlfriends to his wives to his daughters. He'll spend his time breaking the women in his life. It takes a broken man to break a perfectly good woman. And there are some that are on here now who are perfectly good women who are presently in the hands of broken men. And that broken man is breaking her down slowly, but surely. Because a broken man, he makes it his full-time job to break woman. Now let's see something in Ephesians 5. Ephesians chapter 5. Yeah, of course they're broken by society. Absolutely. I agree with you. And they bring that trauma home. But in Ephesians 5, 25 through 29, it says, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives, watch this, as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man, here it is, for no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth it, even as the Lord the church. So we see here, when a man when a man destroys the women in his life, there's something fundamentally wrong with his spiritual makeup. Because when a man loves his wife as Christ loved the church, he will love his wife like he loves himself. And no man in his right mind destroys his own flesh. So no man in his right mind would work to destroy his own woman. Now let's go back to the Genesis account. When Adam was whole and in sync with God, we see that he built Eve up and he empowered her. In other words, before they disobeyed God, before God separated Adam from his presence, before he and God had a falling out, when Adam was a whole and complete man, spirit, soul, and body, we see where Adam built Eve, his wife, up. It wasn't until after the fall that we see something different. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 22 and 23, it says, in the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Now listen to his language and listen to how he's building her up. She's bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. What he's doing is he's affirming her as his equal in dominion. That's what he's doing. When he calls her a woman is simply a man with a womb. He's recognizing that she's the same as me. She just has the potential and the power to give birth. She's a man as much as I am with a womb. She has the right to dominion and the power to walk in dominion just like I do, but she has the power to give birth to things. So what is he doing here? He's building her up. He's affirming her. When he's a whole and healthy man, he's building her up and he's affirming her. Now, after Adam falls through disobedience, not doing what God told him to do, and Adam is out of sync with God, his first reaction is to throw his woman under the bus. Interesting. When he's in sync with God, his first reaction to Eve is to build her up. When he falls out of harmony with God, his first reaction is to tear her down. In Genesis 3, 10 through 12, it says, and he said, I heard thy voice in the garden. This is after God It's like, what did you do? Why, why did you eat of this tree? Why didn't you do what I told you to do? And it says, and Adam responds to God and he said, I heard that voice in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. And he said, who told thee that thou was naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat? And the man said, the woman, listen to his wording now, the woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree and I did eat. So now he's not taking responsibility for his own actions. Of course, you say, well, Eve brought the stuff to him. Yes, she did. But God made the agreement with Adam. And Adam was supposed to be a man, which means he was supposed to honor his agreements and his covenants. And so rather than Adam taking responsibility, the first thing this broken Adam does is he throws his woman under the bus. He says, look, God, the woman you gave me, she's the reason I'm in this condition. When Adam was whole, he poured into his woman. When he became depleted spiritually, he accused and left his woman uncovered. Yeah. So that's something in that. When a man is not right with God, he can't be right with himself or his woman. When a man is not right with God, he cannot be right with himself or his woman. The Adam that accused and exposed his woman was a fractured man. A broken man makes it his full-time occupation to break his woman. A man has to be whole to lead a woman. See, Adam was so complete in the beginning that he was enough to produce his woman. God created Adam from the dust of the earth, breathed into him and all of that, and he became a living soul. But Adam was so complete, so whole of a man that when God got ready for his woman, God reached into Adam and pulled out of him a whole woman. So a man has to be whole, because a whole man gives life to his woman. That's why the Bible says in Ephesians 5 and 25, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Now, letter B. Letter A was the brokenness. Why does the man break his own rib, break his woman? The brokenness and the insecurity of the man would be letter A. Letter B, the nature of dominion in the woman after the fall creates tension. Now let's unpack that. A broken man breaks his woman. Letter B, where does this tension come from? The nature of dominion in the woman after the fall feeds into the tension between man and woman. See, prior to the fall, there was no mention, listen to this very carefully. Prior to Adam disobeying and there being a spiritual falling away, there was no mention about anybody being in charge. When you read Genesis, before they fell in sin, before Adam sinned, there was no mention about anybody being in charge. They were viewed as co-equals in dominion. In fact, God gave both of them as a couple. God gave them dominion. God made his agreement with Adam, but he assigned each of them to dominion, both of them. If you look in Genesis 1:26 through 28, it says, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them, and God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea. He's giving dominion to them, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. So the original order was co-dominion, male and female. Co-dominion, male and female. God never instructed Adam to have dominion over Eve, or Eve to have dominion over Adam, because dominion was understood to be a joint venture. There's no idea of one having authority over another. Watch this. until after Adam disobeyed. Adam having authority over Eve, watch this, was not natural. It was a punishment for Eve's part in the fall. Now stay with me right here. Stay with me right here. In Genesis 3:16, it says, God is handing out these punishments for their disobedience. And he says unto the woman, he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. There was no mention of no ruling or having authority over until after the fall. And now God is handing out punishments. And his punishment to Eve was that he's going to rule over you. Why was this a punishment? It was a punishment because it was not God's original intent for Adam to rule over Eve. So God says, I'm going to punish you by giving Adam authority over you and assigning him the responsibility to rule over you. So God introduced the man's rulership over the woman as a punishment for her part in Adam's disobedience. I hope you're seeing that. I'm trying to take my time. Now, stay with me. This punishment, God says, okay, your punishment, Eve, is that I created you to be in co-dominion, but now because you brought him and you encouraged him to do all of this stuff and he was crazy enough to do it, your part in this punishment is that he's going to rule over you now. And Adam, your punishment is that everything you get now, you're going to have to work hard for it. You're going to have to sweat. You're going to have to get calluses. You're going to have to work hard for it. But watch this. This punishment that God put upon Eve, that Adam will now rule over you, listen to this very carefully. This is going to be a revelation for some of you. Did not eliminate Eve's innate nature of dominion. The only way, in other words, God says, okay, I'm punishing you in this way. Adam's going to rule over you. But because God assigned Adam or assigned that punishment to Eve, it did not eliminate Eve's base nature of dominion. She still has a mind to what? Rule and to dominate. But her punishment is that Adam is going to rule over you. The only way for Adam to rule, watch this. Now, Adam is in a bit of a quandary here, because the only way for Adam to rule this queen conscious woman, the only way for Adam to rule her with his, limited understanding at the time, lack of revelation, called for force to break her will. Not that Adam specifically did that, but generations of men that followed after Adam had this same assignment to rule these, dominators. And the only way to facilitate that with an unenlightened mind in a man is I got to break her. Because she still has what? The same spirit of dominion. She doesn't have the spirit to cower down. She doesn't have the spirit to play second fiddle. She doesn't have the spirit to be told what to do. She doesn't have that. But yet that's the punishment that God has put upon her life. So for the man to rule over the woman, he has to, watch this, he has to break her like a lion tamer breaks the spirit of the lion, or like the cowboy breaks the spirit of the stallion. He has to break her. So this is where man begins to, crude, unenlightened men began to develop this system of what? Breaking the women in their lives. Breaking them. Because the woman possessed the same spirit of dominion as he. It would be the same thing. Okay, here's a visual for you. It would be like if I brought a lion out of Africa and dropped him off at your house, or dropped her off at your house and say, you got to rule over this lion. Can you imagine what a situation you would be in up in that house, trying to tame that lion, because when the nature of that lion is to dominate, can you imagine? Well, that's the same thing man has been dealing with in terms of trying to rule the woman, is that it's a curse, it's a punishment rather, but it goes against the nature that God put in the woman. Now, when you look at the latter part of the text, it says the woman's desire, in Genesis 3:16 says, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. The latter part says that the woman's desire shall be to her husband, but he shall rule. In the English Standard Version, it puts it this way. Genesis 3:16 says, your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you. Good luck, good luck. And men have been trying to rule the woman for generations. Now, the spirit of dominion within the woman always makes her contrary to the man that would try to rule her. The unenlightened man, pay close attention here, the unenlightened man enforces through force rather than honor. See, the unenlightened man, the man that does not have a revelation of how this works, seeks to force his woman and seeks to enforce that force through breaking her. Psychological games, physical abuse, emotional abuse, the list goes on. When he's enlightened, he begins to understand that it's not force or enforcing force or breaking the woman that is required, it is honor. The thing that man is seeking to do with the woman is to dominate her. The reality is that she must not be dominated, she must be led. And the only way to lead her is for her to submit. If I bring a lion out of Africa, you can't dominate that lion. You have to find some kind of way to lead that lion, and that lion has to what? Submit. If that lion chooses not to be led, that lion is not going to be led. In fact, the lion might be fed. You. The only way for a man to lead his woman is for her to submit. Now watch this. She will not freely submit without honor. So the unenlightened man thinks that I got to break her, I got to break her, I got to break her, which makes him less than a man. The enlightened man who has a revelation of this thing understands I don't have to break her, I have to lead her. And the only way I can lead her is that I have to honor her. And when I honor her, she'll submit. Because honor is the seed. Everybody wants to talk about how to get a woman to submit. Make her submit, Reb. Preach the sermon, Reb. The reality is when a man sows the seed of honor, the fruit of the seed of honor is submission. So I don't have to break my wife. I don't have to beat my wife down. I don't have to belittle my wife. I don't have to demean my wife. I just got to lead my wife. And I can't lead my wife unless I honor my wife. And when I honor my wife will what? Submit to my leadership. Okay, praise the Lord. I hope that was clear. In 1 Peter 3:6-7, it says, even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters you are, as long as you do well and are not afraid with any amazement. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them, your wives, according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. When there's friction between you and the wife, your potential is stagnant. Your prayers are hindered. But when you honor your wife, things work. The honor, again, is the seed. The submission is the fruit. If you want fruit, first comes the seed, then comes the fruit. Now, thirdly and finally, why is there this tension between the man and the woman? I think number one, we said, letter A rather, was the brokenness and the insecurity of the man. which we see depicted in Adam. And when he was broken, his first step was to break his woman. Secondly, was the nature of dominion in the woman. You know, the nature in the spirit of dominion in the woman will not allow her to rest in a state of being dominated. And when a woman tries to surrender herself to that, she knows something's not right. It doesn't even feel right because there's the spirit of dominion in her. And the man doesn't know how to process that spirit of dominion until he comes to a place where he dwells with her according to knowledge. And he understands that I have to honor this woman. And when I honor her, the wife will submit to my leadership, not even my dictatorship, but my leadership. And then letter C, the arrested development of the man leaves him incapable of securing the woman. Why is there this tension? The arrested development of the man. The creation of Adam is associated with dirt, meaning things external. When God created Adam, he created him from the dust of the earth, things external. The creation of Eve is associated with Adam's rib, things internal to Adam. Another major factor in the tension between men and women is the basic hormonal differences, I suppose I could say. The basic hormonal differences, the difference in the nature of the woman versus the man, the difference between masculinity and femininity. The dominant male hormone is what? Testosterone, which makes the man competitive and aggressive. Now, not to chase a rabbit, but I think testosterone is being depleted in men today for some reason because men are seeming to be a little, well, let me leave that alone. The dominant male hormone is testosterone, which makes the man competitive and aggressive. It's what makes the man say, I'm the man, makes the man want to compete. It's what makes the man want to stand up to another man, you know, prove that I'm as much man or more man than you. It's the testosterone. It's the thing that makes a man want to put on a suit and a helmet and tight pants and slam into one another. You know, it's the testosterone. It's the aggressiveness of the testosterone in the man. The dominant female hormone is estrogen, which creates a what? A loving and an empathetic nature, more emotionally sensitive. One is external and aggressive. The other is internal and emotional and loving. Now, the crisis occurs. Listen to this very carefully. The crisis between the two occurs when society conditions each to surrender to roles that are counterproductive. Society teaches the man based on his hormonal impulse that sex is the epitome of manhood. That's what we learn in the barbershop. That's what we learn in the backyard. That's what we learn. Sex is the epitome of manhood. That testosterone, it has to express itself, and society teaches the man that your sexuality is the greatest expression of your manhood. Now, the same society teaches the woman based on her hormonal impulses that she is nothing if she does not have a man to love her and affirm her. Now, society teaches the man, have as much sex as you can, avoid commitment by all costs. And then the same society takes the woman and teaches her, you're nothing if you do not have a man, a husband to love and to affirm you. Now, the problem is that society has conditioned the woman to chase the man. Thank you, Kayla. And the same society has conditioned the man to run from the woman. So the woman is chasing the man and the man is running from the woman. The problem with this dysfunctional dynamic is that the man only hurts himself when he breaks his woman. He doesn't realize it. It's not until the man takes a pause and really has a God moment that he comes into his self-awareness, that he wakes up and realizes all of the lies that society has poured into him and how these lies have caused him to break his his girlfriends, his wife, his mother, his daughters. And then he pauses and he stops and he becomes, in God, he becomes the man that he needs to empower his woman. And he stops participating in this dysfunctional dynamic. He stops breaking his own rib. Listen to this very carefully, and I'm just about done. A broken rib cannot be, when we use the term rib, we're talking about the wife. God made Eve from Adam's rib. A broken rib cannot be aided by an external cast to heal it. In other words, I break my arm, you can put it in a cast and it'll set it and it'll heal it. Break my leg, put it in a cast, it'll set it and it'll heal, it'll mend. But there's no cast, there's no external cast for a broken rib. The rib has to rely, the rib meaning the broken woman, has to rely on its innate healing properties to heal itself. If I break my rib, I have to trust the healing properties that God has put in my body to bring healing to that broken rib. So it is with a woman. There's no healing for a broken woman outside of herself and God. When you're constantly looking to the same people that broke you to heal you, you are insane, really, because the person that broke you is not the one to heal you. There's no cast to set a broken rib in. Watch this, and I'm done. The broken rib has to continue to function, hurt, and heal all at the same time. The broken rib has to continue to function, hurt while it's functioning, and heal all at the same time. The woman who has been broken by a man cannot expect the men that broke her to heal her. Your healing comes from within and not from without. Broken women too often tend to work on everything but themselves. You're working on your relationship, you're working on this, you're working on your weight, you're working on everything but yourself. When the reality is that your healing is in yourself and with your God. So that's just a biblical perspective. I hope that made sense to you all, man. You know, just understanding the tension between men and women. Somebody says, you're the first person translating this as the truth that I can believe and understand finally. 52 and have never believed all the stuff until you. Thank you. Well, it's this is why I believe that we have to read the Bible and ask the Holy Spirit to unfold it for us, because there's a lot of stuff that we've been taught that really does not gel with what God actually intended. And so that's just my perspective, and that's the way I see it. And when I look at that biblical account and I look at society and what I know about, mankind, that perspective works for me. So I pray, thank you, Lakeisha. I pray that you guys have gotten something out of this. I got to bring my wife to get something to eat now. Listen, there are a few things. Let me pray for you before I let you go. Father, I thank you for this time that I've had. And I thank you, God, for giving them understanding and clarity. Thank you for healing, God. Healing, bringing healing to every broken heart in the name of Jesus Christ. Let that peace rest upon your people in Jesus' name. That's a good question. What are some scriptures for healing brokenness? I'm going to, what I'll do is in my community, I will post some scriptures for bringing healing to brokenness. I'll post some for you. I'll try to do that today sometime. So just look out for the notification. Now there's some things going on. Number one, we're coming to London, England. Queenology is coming to London, England, March 27th and 28th, 2020. We're coming to London, England, March the 27th and the 28th. Registration is up and running at rcblakes.com. Queenology is coming to London, England, 2020. I'm excited about it. It's going to be Lisa's first time on the other side of the pond, and we're coming to be a blessing in the UK, March 27th and 28th. You can go to rcblakes.com, and if you're anywhere in Europe and you want to come to Queenology, you can go and register for that now. Also, don't forget that we're having the Queenology cruise in July of 2020. What are the dates again, Lee, for the cruise? July 19th through the 26th, we are cruising the Western Caribbean. And we'll be, of course, we'll have sessions when we're out to sea. I'll be dropping the book Kingology if we have enough men. We'll do sessions for the kings as well as for the queens. But it's a Queenology cruise, and people are coming, actually have some people coming from Europe to cruise with us in July. What else am I missing, Lee? Is that it? Don't forget to stop by my website, rcblakes.com, and pick up any of my 3 online courses. We have Transcending the Father Wound for those of you that have struggled with the absence, either physically or emotionally, the absence of fathers. We have Wisdom for Women in Ministry, and I just dropped last week, Queenology. It's basically 10 sessions with me sitting and talking like I am now, and we just take the Queenology conversation a little deeper. And the way the online course works is that you have access to it for the rest of your life. You can move in and out of it as you will at your leisure. You can look at it on your phone, your tablet, your computer, rcblakes.com, and they're very affordable. I make certain that they're very affordable, rcblakes.com. Well, I love you all, and thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time today, and I'll try to remember to drop those scriptures for healing in my community sometime today. You all have a great one. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I know this is during the middle of the workday, but I just had to do it while I could get it in. Thank you so much. Bust. I guess I'm saying that name right. Thank you so much. I love you all. I appreciate you. Have a great one. I'll talk to you real soon.